Good evening, everyone. I wanted to first of all welcome everybody to CyberTini 2.0. Thank you all for coming. We're going to go through a very quick format tonight, which is a series of toasts. First of all, I want to thank the crew from the Economic Alliance for their co-sponsorship of tonight, and everybody can grab a book. It's on this back table, right?
Absolutely.
And it's a great book. If you haven't read this yet, it's on the table, so feel free to pick one up on your way out. To give you a little perspective, 2 years ago, this report was written by the state of Maryland. It's called CyberMaryland, and it laid out the goal for Maryland to become the epicenter of cybersecurity. About a year ago, in this building right here, there was a ribbon cutting for the nation's first cyber incubator, which is in this location and through those doors. I think as of today, it is about 100% occupied, a year ahead of schedule, which is great news for the startup community. And growing, and we now have requests for CyberHives around the country to be connected to this region from different parts of the country. About 6 months ago, we had our first CyberTini event, which was here, and in the CyberTini, we welcomed 8 new startups that were from different regions of the country that moved in and said, hey, why don't we put our cyber headquarters in Maryland? So I think all of this has been a great success. And one of the neat things that's happened over the last 6 months is, as many of you attended, there was something called the Maryland Cyber Challenge, which was where high school, college, and pro teams competed with one another, and high school kids actually told their other friends that it's cool to be in cyber, and they all had 3 job offers, which they thought was kind of cool too, as a high school student. So we're gonna follow a format. The first one, I have Ellen Hemmerly come up and say a few words, and as this is her beehive, if you will, and then we also want to have a few of our local entrepreneurs. One of them is Bill Anderson, CEO of Oculus Labs. When this report, the second one, gets written, which will come out in the next few months, which will be called CyberMaryland 2.0, instead of just talking about the goal, it will talk about the 4 pillars of what has happened over the last year. So the 4 pillars of cyber for this region is, one is in education. So I think universities like UMBC, Greg Simmons is here, Mike Hicks, who represents the Cybersecurity division and unit at University of Maryland. Mike, if you could say hi, he's new, so everybody get to know him. We have universities, UMBC, and a lot of other universities and organizations that have built amazing cyber curriculums around this region, which has been great. The second pillar is innovation, so you're gonna hear and see 2 of the up and rising stars. I know I saw somebody from CoolSpan here and a bunch of the other startup companies as well. I think we have about 20 or 30 of them here. And as many of you know, there is a group of about 50 of us going out to the RSA Conference, which Margie has organized from DBED, and we have a whole phalanx of people out there to actually be at RSA and represent CyberMaryland as the mosaic of cyber companies. So with that said, the 2 other pillars also, besides education and innovation, are also economic development. So you'll see a lot of the companies that are moving from out of state have moved here or creating their cyber headquarters, which is creating a whole new world of activity for the players. And the last piece, which I'm going to let Ellen speak about in a minute here, which is really building the whole community. So Ellen, if you don't mind coming up and saying a few words, and you get 3 minutes. You want to stay?
I guess I don't need the stool.
Get on the stool.
All right. So, hopefully I won't fall off the stool. Oh, now I'm really good.
Never seen you like.
It's different perspective. I really just wanted to make a couple of comments, mainly to say thank you for coming today. These are really the most fun events that the bwtech staff puts on, partly because we have CyberTinis, which we think are great, but it's really more about the response. I mean, this community, I know a lot of us are excited about the business opportunities for cybersecurity in the state. Certainly at UMBC, we're finding that It's a remarkable area of growth for us. And just to sort of illustrate that, about 18 months ago, maybe 20 months ago, we had 2 cybersecurity companies that were part of our bwtech park. Today we have 32. And since our last CyberTini event, which was in August, we've had 8 new companies sign leases or come into our incubator program. And that's incredible, especially in this market. I know the economy is starting to come back a bit, but it's still a pretty tough environment. I do want to welcome, just last week, Assured Information Security. Ken Zeitko, are you here? Ken, can you raise your hand? If you can all welcome Ken tonight to our community. His company is actually headquartered in, it's Troy, New York, isn't it?
Rome, New York.
Rome, New York. Upper state New York, right? He came to us, he actually came to us through the university because he's really interested in the university partnership. Just signed a lease last week, and he tells me that he's going to open up the office with 10 new hires and has room for another 10. And so it's great news, and welcome. And with that, let me also thank all of you in the room who are sponsors, partners. There's too many to name individually, but we really do appreciate it. We couldn't do what we do without you. And also thank you for supporting the other cyber programs in the state, because they're all very important. Okay.
Nice. So I want to do an introduction, just a few words, if I could thank Tom Sadowski, Jen Gunner from Economic Alliance. If we give them a round of applause. There's a number of you in this room, but they sponsored a mission trip where a number of us, I think it was 30, 40 people, went out to Silicon Valley, and we toured a bunch of companies, and we actually ran this event in Palo Alto. And so that region is now set up this event and this community actually connected to here. And we just got a call the other day, as I mentioned, that San Diego is doing the same. So we think, within the next 6 months, we'll have a set of these that are all connected into here, because they eventually have to come back to the region. So we want to thank you for all that work, and thanks for your support of that. So anybody that's created a startup company, the hardest thing in the world is you create an idea. So Bill and I were at the same company called SafeNet, and he was there actually after I was there, and he had this idea, and I remember meeting him in Starbucks in Columbia, and
he told me not to do it.
And I told him not to do it. It's true, but I bought you golf.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
So I was wrong, and he's going to tell his story. We're going to give you a couple 3-minute vignettes. Bill, I have a bet with Wayne Sheffins, wherever he is, that he cannot do this in 3 minutes because he's Canadian, and he's an amazing presenter, but he just will not be able to do it in 3 minutes. But he has an amazing story. But we have two companies here that took their ideas, and then they actually got them funded by national organizations. And after they're finished, I'm going to ask Ursula, wherever she is you're going to see real big league companies starting to invest in these companies in these regions. And then we have the state of Maryland following with a really big chunk of cash to help fuel this entire ecosystem. So Bill, 3 minutes.
Yeah. So Rick's actual advice to me was just don't try to sell to the government. He said they pay slow and they don't pay enough. Go after the commercial business. So we started the company about 4 years ago to focus on a problem that is a serious problem, and that really wasn't being addressed by information security. And I had to go off and start a company in order to do this. And that's protecting the last 2 feet of your network, the distance from the computer screen to your eyes. So how many times have you been sitting there working away on your laptop in your office, and you felt like, hey, is somebody looking over my shoulder at what I'm doing right now? I mean, how many people have had that feeling that someone's looking and you're doing something that's maybe not secret, but you don't want someone else looking? That's the problem. And it's a problem for you as individuals, it's a problem for governments, it's a problem for businesses. We address that problem with a couple of technologies that make it possible for you to sit there and work on a classified document in a crowded room and people can come stare over your shoulder and they still won't be able to understand what's on your screen. And you don't have to believe me. Go to oculuslabs.com and watch the video, because it's true. We've grown from having this crazy idea to actually having product in the market. We were funded by Maryland angel investors. We were funded by Tedco. We were funded by DBED. And most recently, we've taken an investment from one of the big guys. So we've got Incutel money in Oculus Labs now, which is fantastic. Now, I can't tell you why, but it's because they have certain customers behind that think that what we're doing is interesting. And it is interesting, and it's an important problem. It's an expensive problem. It turns out that something like 30 to 50% of all the breaches, data breaches, are being caused by insiders. Those guys that were looking over your shoulder while you were working, they had a reason for looking. They were snooping. They were getting some orientating information as to where they should go to launch an attack. Who had the credit card numbers? Who was working with social security numbers? It's all out there. You just have to walk around the office to see it. Those breaches are costing almost $1 million a year to companies that are experiencing them. And like I said, it's about half. And so it's a significant problem. And we're developing technologies to solve that for a couple of bucks. We're not using plastic privacy filters. Don't get the wrong idea. It's software. It's really cool. It's really smart. And we develop it here in Maryland. So I want to say just thank you for having me here. Thank you for all of you, because there's many people in this room that have supported Oculus to get us to where we are today. And I just want to say I really appreciate the community here in Maryland. We had a choice of where we started and ran the business. And this has been a wonderful place to actually start up and run an information security company. So thanks very much. Now, do I owe a toast?
Yeah, please do a toast.
So who am I toasting?
Toast your community.
I'd like to toast the people who go to work every day and cause security breaches. No, no, I'd like to toast the rest of you. Cheers.
And you did it. That was one of them. All right. So I'd like to introduce Derek with Looking Glass, and he's brought this term called situational awareness, which, can I get a show of hands who knows what situational awareness is? Almost everybody. So this is, he's one of the new Googles, and he's got some cool stuff, and he's doing some good things, and he's got some news to announce as well. So Derek?
I don't know if it's newsy. Can I start this?
No, I don't. You're fine.
I'll be fast. So, don't saddle us with the Google title. We're not trying to take your data and do something bad with it. So we started about 5 years ago with the idea that there's bad neighborhoods on the internet, there's bad neighborhoods in what we would now call cyberspace, and sometimes if you're a big company and you're operating in those neighborhoods, you might want to know it. You might want to know that your partners are, that your providers are, that your customers are. And we built some tools to basically create that situational awareness, to give you a weather map for the internet, to give you a way to track what's going on outside your network, to be able to do forecasting and prediction about what you need to care about and be concerned about internally. 5 years ago when we started, people thought we were crazy because they were very internally focused. We, through gumption, hard work, good timing, and maybe being crazy, stuck with our message, and the market caught up. And so, recently, as Rick's been on me to talk about, you may have seen that we had an announcement in the past couple days that we closed a West Coast investor, so Silicon Valley investor with a long track record in the space, actually the founder of Incutel, the guy that started it. And the presentation went like this. So I've been working with another VC for 18 months or so, maybe a little less than that. And I meet Gilman, I give him a 20-minute presentation out at Dulles, I get a term sheet the next day, and we close in a couple months. And I think the reason is because the market's matured, the place that we are with our access to people and our access to clearances and our access to talent and the customer set here gave him the impression, their fund the impression that we were in a rocket ship that was ready to take off. I hope he's right, but I think he is. So there's a lot to be said for location, for the community around us, because we have partners and and customers that are impressive because of our location, if nothing else. And so that translates well not only to the kind of investors that are local, the DBEDs and TEDCOs and the InQtels, but also to those that are nationally focused and really trying to invest in the next Facebook. Well, let you do bad stuff with your data too. Somebody else. Give me somebody that does it.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. I don't have to give a toast, do I?
No.
All right. And we're excited about our location, and we're excited about the community, and we think that hopefully will be a place to grow and hire and be a success story for the region. Thanks, Rick.
Where's Ursula? I'd like to introduce Ursula with DBED, and you've seen some news that. What's that?
I'm just waving.
Oh yeah. So Ursula runs economic development for DBED, and you've seen the news come out about Invest Maryland, and a big part of this investment is to fuel a lot of the early stage dollars that a lot of the venture capitalist companies will not touch. So it's a really big piece of news, and even though it is our government, you have a really strong group of entrepreneurs that care about supporting this, and I think Ursula is one of the is an entrepreneur that's working in DBED, and if you haven't met her yet, you should get to know her, but she's going to give you 2 minutes on Invest Maryland.
All right. Boy, that's quite a plug. Pretty expansive, but I'll take it. I just want to echo what Rick and Ellen had said at the start, which is it's just tremendously exciting and gratifying to be with all of you. Such a diverse, dynamic group of folks in this rapidly growing industry. And sort of with each month, there's a palpable sort of sense of excitement and movement, particularly at the startup side of things, which we tend to see a fair amount of. My job tonight is just to give you a real quick update on Invest Maryland. First off, what it is. It was passed by the state legislature last year, and it's a mechanism to raise capital through the state government, through a state government network that then gets offered in the marketplace more broadly as venture capital. So we're using the premium tax that insurance companies pay, and we're doing a tax credit auction at which they're able to bid and pay off several years in advance at a discount. And it's a fairly elegant solution. We also have a venture fund authority, which is a group of private sector folks led by Peter Greenleaf of MedImmune, that are actually managing this process, because DBED wants to be really, really careful about keeping an arm's length distance from these kind of business transactions. So the tax credit auction is happening on March 15th. Looks very promising. It's automated. The fund authority chose a contractor that is managing the auction, and we're expecting between 15 and 30 insurance companies to bid. So fingers crossed, $80 million coming our way. The second important piece of work that is now ongoing is we have hired a contractor, which I'm going to be careful and not identify them because the contract is being signed tomorrow, but a contractor that is going to work with the fund authority to figure out how to allocate the capital. So there'll be a very disciplined vetting process for regional and national venture capital firms that are going to take a piece of the $45 million that is going to be allocated. One of the things we're going to be working on for the next few weeks is the investment approach for this $45 million. Early stage, seed stage, late, specific sectors, that's kind of up for grabs, but it's clear that cyber is going to be way up there. And then finally, the Maryland Venture Fund, which many of you know and are familiar with, we're staffing up. We're also looking at our own investment approach because we're going to have a lot more money than we've had in a number of years. And we're looking forward to building deal flow. So I'm hoping to hear from many of you. I know I've already heard from a couple. Thanks.
Thank you. So two housekeeping items. If you hadn't had a chance, there will be a very large booth at the RSA show that Margie is running. If you are a company and you want your logo or some representations, definitely stop by and see her. There's an example of what's going on. You might have all seen the news yesterday. There was an announcement. Senator Mikulski announced the Cyber Center of Excellence, which is going to be based in Montgomery County, which further solidifies the region for cybersecurity. It's a really big deal for the region as well. The last thing is there is going to be an announcement at RSA where Maryland is going to become the home to the National Cybersecurity Hall of Fame. And Dick, if you don't mind raising your hand, here's one of our board members as well. But there's a group of pretty much the 14 rock stars that built this entire industry that are we're going to receive nominations from around the country and basically enshrine the 10 people that have really defined the entire ecosystem in the areas of policy, technology, education, business, and public awareness. So you might see Kiefer Sutherland in Baltimore. But with that said, I wanted to thank all of you for coming, and there's plenty more CyberTinis to finish, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.